What's up everybody? Hope you guys are all doing well today. I've had so many requests over the last year to do a full collection room tour, so today I'm here to deliver. There's so much stuff down here that I want to show you guys, including my LEGO Star Wars and LEGO Marvel collections, Transformers, sneakers, and more. So we'll start off by checking out everything that's on this wall behind me that you guys usually see in the backdrop of my videos, and then we'll flip around and check out everything that's behind the camera that you guys usually don't get to see. Grab a snack and get comfortable. Let's start the tour. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with this rack right here. As you guys can see, this rack is full of boxes. It's a mixture of Transformers and Star Wars boxes primarily, with a couple of others thrown in here and there. Now, majority of these LEGO boxes are opened. There's a select few of them that are still sealed, and I'll make sure that you guys can see that. Now, some of the sets that are still sealed include the Darth Vader's transformation chamber, the TIE bomber, the Inquisitor transport shuttle, and the Mandalorian Fang fighter versus the TIE interceptor. I also have a sealed Finch Dallo resistance bomber and a sealed Coruscant guard gunship. There aren't any sealed Transformers boxes left. Any of the Transformers boxes, the figures are currently on display. And if you guys will look over here on the side, you'll see that I actually have two X-Mansion boxes. One of these boxes is completely empty and the other one is still mostly full. I did a little modification on the X-Mansion to expand it and give it a third floor. And so basically whatever was left of that second copy, all the pieces are still in there. And while we're over here, I would also like to point your guys' attention to my LegoCon box. So back in 2020 and 2021, there was that big virus going around, and so a lot of in-person events were moved to be digital or online. And so LEGO decided to have their own convention where they did some product reveals and other announcements. And so leading up to LegoCon in 2021, they sent out these promo boxes to a bunch of influencers and content creators to promote the event. And so I was fortunate enough to receive one of these LegoCon 2021 boxes. It had a few sets in there. There was nothing exclusive or that you couldn't get already, but it was still really cool to get this box. And there aren't a whole lot of other people that have that. So this is definitely one of the absolute coolest items in my collection. What I also have over here is my LEGO Star Wars Christmas X-Wing. It's actually right here on the end of this row. Now this is not sealed. I built this a few years ago, and every year around Christmas time, I pull it back out and rebuild it and put it on display. And I'll also mention that behind this rack with all these boxes is two more racks just like it. And those two other racks are filled with Tupperware bins. And those Tupperware bins have my other LEGO and Transformers that I don't currently have room to display. And then the other rack is full of Tupperware bins that have all of my former football memorabilia and merch in there. So all of my former college gear and a lot of former gear from my previous stops in the pros, that's all behind this rack. I think that's pretty much all there is to see here for this rack. So let's go ahead and move right over here to our first display shelf. So next up is this display shelf right here. And this display shelf is actually the newest display piece in the collection. I received this as a birthday gift from my dad, my most recent birthday in January of this past year. What we're gonna do here is start on the top floor and then we'll work our way down on each half of the shelf. So starting at the top, we have the Technic Bell Bowing Osprey up there on the far side. That never released in the United States. It was canceled release. And I was very fortunate to be able to pick one up from Maddie's minifigures way back in the day. So big shout out to Maddie for the Osprey. I've also got the Volvo articulated hauler up here on the near side. And this hauler was one of the sets that I received when I received that LegoCon box a few years ago. So a big thank you to LEGO for that articulated hauler. I've also got a jumbo size Optimus Prime Funko Pop in the bed of the hauler, and then in the front I've got two yellow park figures. So we have the G1 Nemesis Prime here and the G1 Optimus Prime next to him. Now starting with this shelf that's further from me, we have a bunch of LEGO Marvel sets up here. We have that UCS style Benatar set that's in the back. We have Arishem on the far side, all the Deviants down in front, and then we have the Eternal Ship tucked away behind. This next level down on the shelf is dedicated to Bumblebee. There is no question that Optimus Prime is my favorite Transformers character, but Bumblebee is definitely number 2. The centerpiece of the shelf, as you guys can see, is the LEGO Bumblebee that came out last year, and that's another set that I was gifted by LEGO, so a big thank you guys for the Bumblebee. I have a ton of regular Transformers Bumblebee figures that are all scattered throughout in front. I've got the Battle Blades Bumblebee in the back, and that's a really desirable one for collectors. I've also got a bunch of Studio Series figures from the live action movies, as well as from Transformers 1, and some other various Bumblebee iterations scattered throughout. I've also got a really cool Whatnot sign in the back. And that Whatnot sign I got from Brickworld Chicago a few years ago. It was designed by one of the Season 1 LEGO Masters contestants that was at the convention. I don't know exactly which one, but I was doing a sponsored show with Whatnot at the convention, and when it was all over, one of the Whatnot reps said that I could take it home with me. Now this next row down, I know it's starting to get a little bit cut off of the screen, but I'll make sure that you guys can see a close-up of it. This is some of my Star Wars Funko Pops. This isn't all of them. I have probably another 8 to 10 that are in storage right now, but these are probably my 10 favorites. I have pretty much all of the Old Republic Legends figures that they've made so far currently on display, as well as a couple other favorites like Hologram Ahsoka. And on the bottom floor, which I know is out of screen right now, is a bunch of my Marvel Funko Pops. Same with Star Wars, this isn't all of them, this is just the ones that I currently have out on display. I'm obviously a big fan of Iron Man, so I have a bunch of Iron Man Pops currently out, as well as a few cool exclusive villain Pops. Now moving over to this half of the shelf that's closest to me, we have 4 Elite Collector Supply minifigure cases. These Elite Collector Supply cases came from one of my favorite toy shops from back up in Indianapolis, the Toy Pit. They gifted me the first one, so shout out to the Toy Pit for the first one, and then the other 3 I either bought or received as gifts from friends and family for like my birthday or Christmas. Now what makes these cases truly elite is the fact that they have built-in LEDs. So there's light switches on all of these cases, you can turn them on, and then the LEDs are built into the sides and the top of each case. So you can light them up and you can get a really clear picture of what all is in each one. So these first 2 cases are full of custom LEGO Star Wars minifigures, and they're predominantly made by AV Figures. AV Figures has been in the game for a long time. They make really cool custom LEGO Star Wars minifigures, and I have several hundred of them in these first 2 cases. This third case right here is predominantly official LEGO Star Wars minifigures. This top row is pretty much all Jedi. The second floor is a bunch of Mandalorians and Dark Side Force users, and then the bottom row has some other official clone troopers and just some other miscellaneous figures like Advent Calendar figures. And in the case on the bottom floor, which I know is at a screen, is a whole bunch of Marvel minifigures. So the top floor is pretty much all hero characters, the middle floor is pretty much all villains, and then the bottom floor is pretty much all Spider-Man affiliated characters. Some of those are official and some of them are custom. I think that's going to do it for the shelf, so let's go ahead and move on to our first display case. Next up is our first display case, and this is our first of 2 Transformers cases. Starting with the top, we have this influencer or promo box that I received from Hasbro and Paramount ahead of the release of Transformers 1. So a big thank you to Paramount and Hasbro for this sweet box. I posted a couple videos showing you guys what all is in there, so go check them out if you haven't already. As I mentioned when we were looking at all of the Bumblebee figures, Optimus Prime is actually my #1 favorite Transformers character. And as you guys can see from this display case, he takes up an overwhelming majority of the space in this case. The top 3 floors are pretty much exclusively Optimus Prime figures, and then the bottom floor is about half Optimus Prime and half a bunch of other stuff. This top floor is predominantly Optimus Prime figures from all of the movies. So closest to me, we have a lot of the figures from the live action movies, the Michael Bay movies, for example. And then further away from me, we have like the Bumblebee, Rise of the Beast, and Transformers 1 characters. And then up in the front here, we have a couple of other figures that weren't from the movies, but didn't really fit in one of these other 2 shelves. So that's why they ended up there. This next floor down is a bunch of Unicron Trilogy Optimus Primes. We have Armada furthest away from me, Cybertron in the middle, and Energon closest to me. We also have the Cybertron redo from Siege. We have Leo Breaker that combines with that original Cybertron figure. We have the Armada Optimus Prime from Legacy, and then we have some Transformers animated Primes up towards the front, and then we have some other Optimus Primes from animated TV shows like Cyberverse or Earthspark, as well as some Orion Pax figures on the far side. This third floor is pretty much all G1, G2, or Generations inspired Optimus Prime figures. In the way back, we have the Lego Optimus Prime. This was one of the only spaces that's tall enough to fit him. We've got Masterpiece Optimus Prime in here. We've got an original mold of the G2 Laser Prime. We have G2 Legacy Prime. We have Power of the Primes Evolution Prime, which is a really cool 2-in-1 with Orion Pax and Optimus Prime built in there. And one of the defining pieces of this shelf is the Diaclone Battle Convoy VMAX. So basically Transformers started off as a Japanese toy line called Diaclone, and they ended up getting sold out and imported to the United States by Hasbro and got renamed into Transformers. Obviously Takara, which is who created Diaclone originally, has had a lot of success since then, and so they've kind of rebooted their Diaclone line, and so that's basically a Takara Diaclone interpretation of a modern Optimus Prime. And on the bottom floor of this case, we have the HasLab Victory Saber in one of the corners. We have a bunch of aligned continuity Optimus Primes, so that's basically like War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, Transformers Prime, anything along those lines. And then in the side closest to me on the bottom shelf, we have a bunch of other non-Optimus Prime, primarily Autobot figures. That's pretty much all there is to see for this case, so let's move on to our first LEGO case. Next up is our first of many LEGO cases. Now these next 2 cases we're going to look at are a little bit shorter than that Transformers case, so I'm going to go ahead and sit down while I can. Starting with what's on top, we'll go ahead and knock this big case out first. So this case right here is from Wicked Brick, and this houses 100 of my rarest and most valuable custom LEGO Star Wars minifigures. This case holds 100 figures, and I'm pretty sure all 100 of them came from AV Figures. The 50 figures that are on the left or that are furthest away from me are all printed, and then the 50 figures that are on the right or closest to me are all decaled. There's also a little over 30 minifigures in here that are one-of-ones, meaning that's the only copy of that fig that AV Figures ever produced. The figs in here are the pride and joy of my custom LEGO Star Wars minifigure collection, and that's why they're in this case. On top of this case, we have several more custom LEGO Star Wars minifigures. Most of those are once again made by AV Figures, but there are a few scattered throughout that are made by some other people. There's one custom figure up there made by Kits Customs. There's a couple up there made by Bendel Bricks. There's a couple made by Hoodie Studios, and there's also one made by Bloomosaurus. Now behind this Wicked Brick case, you'll see a rather large Commander Cody minifigure. And I got asked about that Commander Cody so many times, so I'll go ahead and do a brief history on him. So when I went to the grand opening of the Bricks and Minifig store that's up in Mission, Kansas, the store owner, Will, had a friend who made a few of those upscaled minifigures for him, but because they weren't official LEGO product, he wasn't allowed to use them on display in the store. And so when he picked me up from the airport and was driving me over to the hotel the night before the opening, he asked me if I wanted to have one, and I said absolutely, I would love to have one. Will ended up keeping a Phase 1 Captain Rex that his friend had made for him, and I was fortunate enough to be given the Commander Cody. I've also got my original Phase 2 Captain Rex with the Phase 2 Captain Rex trading card, and one of these cases done by Ryan and Brickshell. Moving into the case itself, on the top floor we have a bunch of Republic LEGO Star Wars sets. Some of the highlights in this row, I think, are the 2010 Turbo Tank and the Anakin's Custom Jedi Starfighter from the 2003 Clone Wars show. The next floor once again has Republic sets. My favorites from this shelf include the Republic Frigate from the Clone Wars and the original T6 Jedi Shuttle. This bottom row has Separatist sets. My favorites from here include the Malevolence and the Umbarum Heavy Cannon towards the back. That's going to do it for this first case, so let's keep it moving. This next case is once again filled with LEGO Star Wars sets, but I'll start with what's on top first and then we'll work our way down. Now up towards the front here we have my battle droids, and this is pretty much every battle droid that I have to my name except for the ones that you might have seen in those sets in the Separatist shelf. And these battle droids are housed in Ultra Pro cases, and these were actually the first two display cases that I ever bought when I was starting my custom minifigure collection a few years ago when I lived in Indianapolis. The collection has come a long way since then. As you guys could see previously, a lot of my minifigures are now in those really nice Elite Collector Supply cases. But these cases were perfect to house my battle droid collection. On top of the battle droids, we have some miscellaneous stuff. So furthest from me, we have a custom Optimus Prime minifigure from the Last Night in Age of Extinction, which is really nice. We have a bride and groom brick heads for myself and my wife. We have Lego calendar bricks. And then closest to me, we have some custom tiles and bricks from various personalities in the LEGO space. Now behind the battle droids and all the other stuff that's on top is one of my Scobo cases. I've been fortunate to have a great relationship with Scobo, and they've sent me some really awesome products to display parts of my LEGO collection. Now this minifigure case is originally designed to hold 70 minifigures, but because I stacked them 2 rows deep, it's actually able to hold 135 minifigures the way I currently have it situated. The top row is predominantly sig figs, either of myself or other people that I know. The second row is entirely Senate Commando minifigures, and those bottom 3 rows are basically all Imperial minifigures. So we've got Stormtroopers, we've got Shore Troopers, we've got Imperial Guards, we've got Shadow Guards, and then the bottom floor has some custom Imperials that are custom Purge Troopers made by Big Kid Bricks, and those are really sweet. Now moving into the display case, where that previous case was pretty much all prequel era sets, this is pretty much all original trilogy sets. Now on the top row, we have a bunch of Imperial sets. Some of my favorites from the Imperial row include that TIE Fighter from the Han Solo movie wave, and the 20th anniversary Boba Fett Starship. I picked up that set as kind of like a good luck charm right before we played the Tennessee Titans on Thursday Night Football my rookie year when I was with the Colts. So I have some fond memories attached to that ship because we won that game. So this next row is pretty much all Rebel sets. Some of my favorites from this row include the original Ghost and Phantom that are furthest from me. We have the original U-Wing in the back, and we also have the Rebel Combat Frigate that came with the Rebels Ahsoka up here towards the front. And then in this bottom row, as you guys can see, is pretty much all Tatooine sets. So we have the Master Builder Series Mos Eisley Cantina furthest from me. That's another set that I was gifted by LEGO, so big thank you to you guys for that awesome set. And then closest to me, we have the Jabba's Palace and the Rancor Pit that combine together. And as you guys can see, it makes for one incredible display. So before we get to this tall case that's right behind me, I'll show you guys that big minifigure case that you guys can see up in the top of the screen. So back here on the wall, kind of bridging the gap between these two shorter cases, is this large minifigure case right here. Now this minifigure case here I received as a gift. It was either a Christmas or a birthday gift from my father-in-law, my wife's dad, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. So big thank you to him for this sweet case. Now with this minifigure case, just like the Scobo one that I just talked about, I was able to basically double the amount of minifigures that I can hold in here by stacking them 2 rows deep. So this case, which was originally intended to hold 125, is actually holding 245 minifigs. The top row is pretty much all Phase 1 clones, ranging from the Bomb Squads and the Gunners furthest from me, over to the Elite ARFs and Standard ARFs closest to me. The next row is a mix of Phase 1 clone troopers and Senate Commandos. So you have some Phase 1 jetpack clones furthest from me. You have Phase 1 clone commanders in the middle, including all of the official Phase 1 LEGO clone commanders, such as Gree, Cody, Rex, Wolf, and Fox. And then closest to me, we have some Senate Commandos and Senate Commando captains. The next row is a mixture of Phase 2 clones, ranging from Kashyyyk and Geonosis clones on the far side, over to 212 and Phase 2 clone gunners on the closest side. The next row is once again Phase 2 clones, with a wide variety, including those animated 212th or really 327th clones on the far side. And then we also have a mixture of Phase 2 501st clone troopers on the near side. And then on the bottom row, we have Imperials, ranging from standard clone troopers and patrol troopers on the side furthest to me, ranging all the way to shore troopers and Mimbins on the side closest to me. And then on the very top of this case, we have this Captain Rex Transformers figure. And I picked up this Captain Rex Transformers figure from Holocron, which is a Star Wars only store located in Fort Worth, Texas, that I visited while I was in Texas for the UFL season. I don't know if this is his final resting place, but he at least fits in with all the other clone troopers in the case beneath him. So that's going to do it for these two shorter cases. Let's move on over to this other tall boy behind me. So this last case over here is the Marvel Modulars. Starting with the top of the case, we have this football, and this football is the ball that I kicked when I broke the school record at the University of Georgia for most points in a career. So very special football, always want to have that out on display. And then on the far side, we have a trophy that all the Georgia players get when we beat Georgia Tech. And then this one up in the front is an award that I won in high school. So on the top floor, we have the X-Mansion closest to me and the Doctor Strange Sanctum Sanctorum further from me. Now, as I alluded to earlier with those two X-Mansion boxes that we saw earlier, I did a little project on the X-Mansion to make it a more appropriate size. The original set only has 2 floors, and I used parts from that second set to give it the 3rd floor that I was seeing in a lot of the reference material online when the X-Men 97 show came out. And as you guys can see next to the Sanctum, I think this is a much more appropriate size for the mansion to be. And in the bottom section of the case, we have the 2 tallest Marvel Modulars. We have the Daily Bugle closest to me and the Avengers Tower further from me. And while you guys are checking out some B-roll of all these sets up close, I'll take a second to give a big thank you to LEGO for gifting me both the Avengers Tower and 1 copy of the X-Men X-Mansion. So this case completes the back wall. This is pretty much everything you guys see in the backdrop of all my videos. So let's flip around and see all the stuff that you guys don't normally see that's behind the camera. So first up on this reverse wall over here is another case that I was given by my guys at Scobo Design. This is a 3-level stacking case. And as you guys can see, I've got LEGO and more Transformers in this case over here. This top floor has the LEGO Creator 3-in-1 Medieval Castle, and I've filled it out with a bunch of Knights minifigures from across the history of the LEGO Castle theme. I've got a couple of videos up on this if you guys want to check that out. And then the bottom 2 floors have more Transformers figures. So this middle floor has a bunch of Decepticon and other bad guy figures in it, and then the bottom floor has a bunch of various Optimus Primal and other good guy figures in there. Some of my favorite figures from this case include the Transformers 1 Studio Series Megatron right here. That came in the promo box that we looked at earlier, as well as the Air Attack Optimus Primal and the Transmetal Optimal Optimus that are in the bottom floor. That's just about everything for this case, so let's keep it moving. And right next to that first 3-level stacker from Scobo is another set of stacking cases that I've also received from Scobo Design. But I'll start with what's on top of the cases first. So this is a jersey that all of the graduating seniors receive when you get done playing at the University of Georgia. Now, I don't believe this was actually a jersey that I wore in a game. It's more of just like a ceremonious jersey that you get as a memento when you leave. Now, moving on to what's actually inside these cases, these are the holy grail sets of my LEGO Marvel and LEGO Star Wars collections. In this top case, we have the 2015 LEGO Shield Helicarrier. I have multiple videos up about this set, including how I motorized it with all the power functions. So if you guys want to see what this helicarrier is all about, make sure to go check out those videos. And in this bottom shelf, we have the LEGO Star Wars Republic Dropship with ATOT Walker. This is a white whale set for a lot of LEGO Star Wars collectors, and I'm very fortunate to have it in my collection. I also have the Clone Wars ATTE underneath the other wing of the dropship because that's another set that is compatible with the dropship. And then scattered around the 2 big walkers is a bunch of the small Battle Pack clone walkers from that first Clone Wars wave. These are 2 very significant pieces for my LEGO collection, and I'm very thankful to Scobo for sending me these beautiful cases to display them. That's going to do it for these cases right here, so let's move on to these 2 that are right behind me. So last up on this reverse wall are these 2 single wide cases over here. We'll start off with what's on top and then work our way down into what's in each one of them. So up at the very top, we have this Iron Man artwork right here. And this Iron Man art was done by one of my neighbors and friends when we lived up in Indiana named Gavin. So big shout out to Gavin for this Iron Man work. And Gavin's Iron Man art is sitting on top of my Iron Man Hall of Armor mock. I've posted a number of videos about this Iron Man mock, acquiring individual Iron Man minifigures to fill out the cells, as well as breaking it down and expanding it so that it can fit more. I need a few more cells so I can fill out this far side right here, and then it'll basically be at capacity and have the maximum amount of space possible to hold as many Iron Man figures as I can find. As you guys will see from the exhibitor tiles up front, I've brought this mock to Atlanta BrickCon each of the last 2 years, and it's always been a big hit. I've got pretty much every official Iron Man, War Machine, and Iron Patriot minifigure that LEGO has produced, except for this most recent Summer 2025 wave. And then I also have custom minifigures for all of the suits that LEGO has not produced from Iron Man 3, basically going from the Mark 18 all the way up to the Mark 40. And then on the top of our second case, we have the Lou Groza Award. That's the award that you win for being the best kicker in college football. I also have a couple of Silver Surfer action figures off to the side. And then behind the Lou Groza Award is an Optimus Prime plushie that I also received in that Transformers promo box. And then one of the most recent additions to the collection is this original Star Wars thermos from when the first movie came out in 1977. I was given that thermos as a gift by one of the staffers up in St. Louis when I was up there for this most recent UFL season. So starting with the top floor of this case closest to me, we have pretty much all of the Iron Man Hulkbuster, War Machine Buster, Ironmonger, and Iron Man mech builds that LEGO has made up to this point. This next floor down has a bunch more LEGO Marvel sets. Some of them are Iron Man related, like the Iron Man buildable action figure and the Infinity Gauntlet and Nano Gauntlet in the back. And then some of them are not, such as the Hulk versus Red Hulk set with those big crasher cars. The next floor down has even more LEGO Marvel sets, including that Spider-Man No Way Home Final Battle with the Sandman DLC set attached, and that makes for one really nice display. And in the bottom floor of this case, which is not actually behind this door, it's actually open air, I have some more Iron Man related memorabilia. I have a couple of Burger King figures, I have a Marvel Legends figure, and I have a Bluetooth Iron Man speaker. And in this case furthest from me, we have some more LEGO Star Wars sets. So on the top row, we have the Old Republic Jedi Defender class cruiser, as well as the Episode 9 Kylo Ren shuttle. I also have two different Kylo Rens and all of the Knights of Ren displayed in front of it. In the next level down, I have the Episode 9 Millennium Falcon, and then in the level below that, I have the Playscale Razor Crest, as well as some other Mandalorian-related smaller sets. And on the very bottom of this case, which is once again open air, I have a bunch of Super Plastic figures. So Super Plastic was kind enough to send me a set of one of their blind box vinyl figures. I had a great time opening those up, and those are all currently on display down there on the bottom of that shelf. So that's gonna wrap it up for this reverse wall. And the last thing we need to get to is the sneakers. So this right here is my wall of sneakers. I've got over 100 pairs of sneakers in the collection. I'm not gonna go through every single one of them one by one, but I'll point out some of my favorites. And before we dive into the sneakers, I'll touch on these couple pieces on the wall right above them. So up right here closest to me, this is a photo collage. It was made by, at the time, my girlfriend, now my wife, Logan. She made this collage primarily using photos that I posted on my social media during my freshman season at Georgia, the first year that I was actually kicking for the team. And then right here we have all of the lanyards. These had the itineraries on it when we traveled for all of our games. And then right next to the photo collage, we have this Blankenship number 98 Respect the Specs UGA handmade wooden flag. I don't remember who or when exactly I got it, but I do remember that it was given to me by a Georgia fan, so a big thank you if you're the one that made that flag. So jumping into the sneakers, we'll start with this rack right here, which goes from here over to here. And this rack all the way down is basically all Nike. So the top half of this rack is basically all sneakers that I bought for myself, and then the bottom half is basically all sneakers that I received while I was at the University of Georgia. Some of my favorites include the LeBrons up here on the top floor, these Iron Man Vapor Maxes on the second floor, and these Tiger Print Roshis on the third floor. And I'll pull out a couple of my favorites that I was given while I was at UGA so you guys can see those as well. Now the second rack, which goes from here all the way to here, this rack is pretty much entirely Adidas shoes. I'm a big fan of Boost, which is the cushioning technology that Adidas has implemented on a lot of their sneakers. The top 5 rows of this rack are all various iterations of the Ultra Boost sneaker. And then on the bottom half of this rack, you have some of their other models that incorporate Boost, such as the NMDs, the Pure Boost, and the Energy Boost. Two pairs in particular that I'll point out from this rack are the Adidas and Lego collab Ultra Boost up here on the top, and the Adidas and Lego Donovan Mitchell collab sneakers more towards the bottom. I've brought both of these pairs of sneakers and worn them at Atlanta BrickCon each of the last 2 years. And then we have these last couple racks right here. Now this rack, which goes from right here to right here, there's pretty much a 50-50 split between Adidas on the top half and Nike or Jordan on the bottom half. A couple pairs that I'll point out from this rack include the Nike CJ81 Megatron trainers that are right here, these purple guys. There is a corresponding Megatron action figure that was in one of those Transformers cases that we looked at previously. I'll also point out the Jordan 4 Lightnings and the Jordan 5 Toro or Raging Bulls. When I was a lot younger, those are two pairs of sneakers that I always dreamed about having, and Jordan recently did retros for both of those shoes in probably the last 4 to 5 years, so I was very fortunate to be able to get both of those and not have to pay astronomical resale prices for the original versions. And then this last rack over here is more formal shoes. So the top row has all my Sperry's, the next couple rows have other loafers or dress shoes, and then I've also got some Star Wars Sperry's right here, and the iconic Heelys that I pulled up in for a preseason game a few years ago when the video kind of went viral on Instagram and TikTok and social media. So those are the Heelys that I wore in that video, and that pretty much does it for the collection room. So let's head back to the desk and we'll wrap it up there. Okay, so I know I said we were gonna head back to the desk, but I had to call an audible at the last second. There's a few other items in the collection that I wanted to make sure I showed you guys because I think they're super cool and I think that you guys will agree. So let's go ahead and check them out. So we'll start off with this piece right here. This is a Darth Vader action figure carrying case, and the figures inside are actually the first Star Wars action figures to ever be produced. So we're gonna undo all of these snaps right here, a couple on the sides and one on the top. There's one side of the case right there, and as you guys can see, there's names for pretty much all the characters that are supposed to be stored in those specific slots. And then here is the second half of the case. We also have this baggie right here that has a lot of the accessories like the backpacks and blasters for a lot of the figures. Now this case and all these figures were given to me by my cousin John. He's a little bit older than I am, but he was still pretty young when the original trilogy came out. I guess you could say this case and all these figures are a family heirloom. I plan to hold on to them and take real good care of them. Next up is the lightsaber that I built at Galaxy's Edge at Disney World. There you go, Savvy's workshop right there. So in February, after my rookie season was over, my wife and I took a trip down to Orlando and we went to all of the Universal and Disney parks. While we were at Galaxy's Edge, I built both a lightsaber and a droid, so I'll go ahead and show you guys both of those. So right here is my lightsaber hilt. This is the ignition switch right here. You just slide it up. Don't have any batteries in here right now, but this would turn it on if I had some in there. Now these pieces were from the protection and defense class. They've updated the pieces since then, so I don't think you can get these pieces anymore, but these were some of the ones that were available at the time about 4 years ago. And here is the lightsaber in its entirety right here. Now when I was actually building the lightsaber at Savvy's workshop, I picked the purple crystal. But immediately after we got done, I went over to one of the shops that was nearby and picked up all the other colors. And here is the astromech droid, or at least the backpack. Here's the remote so you can control it. I believe you can also control it on your phone though. Gonna be as careful as I can be. So here is my Build-A-Droid astromech. I know at first the colors are probably a little off-putting. I was really going for a red, white, and blue or USA themed astromech, but I couldn't really find a great headpiece to finish him off. So instead of being red, white, and blue, he ended up being more red, black, and blue. And then I also wanted to show you guys my Ronin sword from Avengers Endgame. And this sword was handmade and painted by Jeremy, who's a friend and neighbor of ours when we used to live in Indianapolis. Jeremy is actually the dad of Gavin, who made that Iron Man artwork that's sitting up there on top of my Hall of Armor mock. And if you guys saw my Instagram from Halloween last year, then you would have seen that I was Ronin, and this was the centerpiece of my costume. So now that we've seen all those items, I think now we can head back to the desk. So that's pretty much all there is to see with the collection room as it stands currently. Hopefully you guys enjoyed getting to check out everything I currently have on display, and hopefully next time it'll be even bigger and even better. I've also got one last party trick to show you guys before I sign off. Hey Jarvis, hit the lights. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.